Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw. This one's called Just Stop Oil Activists by... How do I say your last name?
Pabon.
Pabon.
Yep.
Are you Portuguese?
Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rican. I'm so sorry.
No, it's all right. No offense. I'm sure there's Portuguese at some point in the history.
Okay. Well, I don't know why I said Portuguese, but just the way you said Pabon, I thought, okay, maybe. Okay, so the photograph has two youngish, I mean, they're kids, I'd say about 16, 17, 18, wearing a white T-shirt. And all I could see, well, it could say just stop, but I say in big black letters, just. And then in smaller letters, S-T-O, could be stop. Very dramatic. Behind them is a dark gray wall, perfect for viewing paintings or photographs. And so it's probably a gallery because it's got little description on one of the images. In the closest to the photographer is a young woman. Her hair's kind of dyed pinkish. She's got nice hoop earrings. She's in the middle of saying something, so her mouth is in the process of formulating something like an SHO maybe. And then sitting right next to her is a young boy with the same T-shirt, just looking ahead. They're both looking at somebody. So I don't know if they're presenting, if they're arguing. Just stop oil activists. What is this?
So this is an image that came out I would say it's been a couple weeks now, and it's probably going to go down in history as one of the more iconic images in the sustainability movement. So
what? That's a big statement.
Yes, and I definitely think it will. So as a bit of background, Just Stop Oil is an activist group that has made a name for itself over the last couple of years by doing really crazy sort of protests. They're kind of the next evolution of Greenpeace, but sort of on steroids.
Sea Shepherds.
Like the Sea Shepherds, but a bit more public and certainly crazier than the Sea Shepherds.
Oh, wow.
So what they did in this picture in particular, they've done lots of things, but in this picture that I sent through, they are in the British Gallery. That is a Van Gogh behind them. It is Van Gogh's Sunflowers. They made their way in, acted as if they were looking at the beautiful painting that's worth
Wait
somewhere.
a minute. I have to... Okay, what the... Okay, now that you say that, I see the Van Gogh, and I see that it's been tossed some orange paint that's actually gone on the front and crawled over the frame.
That is tomato soup.
Okay.
They threw a can of tomato soup on the Van Gogh in a protest against lack of access to food. Okay. So that is, it's a very crazy sort of thing. I can imagine being there and watching this, although I've seen videos of people on TikTok and whatnot who are actually there to see it live. But this is their form of protest. So So they did that. They threw it on the Van Gogh. The Van Gogh's fine. It's covered in glass, so it is okay. Thank God. But this is their form of protest. This is how Just Stop Oil does their thing. They were in another museum, I believe in France last week. They did the same sort of shtick. I don't know what painting, but the same kind of thing. They're also notorious for super gluing their heads to concrete in the middle of London, kind of their thing. So really sort of outlandish activism.
A bit right up my alley, as far as, in the sense that, for example, when I launched Shark Rescue, and this won't all be about me, but it was all about, okay, how do you get noticed? So instead of being genteel and kid gloves and polite, it's good to kind of go up there and do something a little outrageous, because then it gets noticed, obviously, as these kids did. But you're starting off with a bang. I mean, okay.
Now, my position is a bit more, I don't know, I sort of hem and haw on it a bit. Overall, when I speak to people, I am not very pro this kind of activism, and there's a few reasons, and the reason for me at least is the message is out there. It's not like the sustainability or environmental movement is just starting. We've been doing it for close to 100 years. There's probably very few people in the world now that don't know there's something going on with climate change or environmentalism. Whether or not they're doing something is a very different issue. Our goal as folks in this space is to get people converted. So versus getting impressions, this campaign got a lot of impressions. Everybody's talking about it. Did it convert anybody to become more environmentally friendly or to join the sustainability cause or join an NGO? I'm not exactly sure. If anything, it probably turned people off because they're kind of sitting back, scratching their heads and going, okay, I don't understand what the link is with saving the planet. And there is not a link. So I talk a lot about being an altruist, certainly. You want to do good, but you have to be more pragmatic. You have to really think and be strategic about what you're doing so you can get more people on side.
John, you're speaking my language. I love this. Who are you? Okay, this is great. This is great. Okay, so you've put these little bombs out in the air, and I'm going to have to, detonate them. So what are you doing in Australia? How did you get there?
Yeah, my career's a bit of a weird one. I've kind of traveled the world. So I've been in this space, sustainability, for, God, it's been like 20 years now. But what I experienced when I first started out in my professional career, I was in New York. I was working at the UN and became really interested in this sort of public good. I've always kind of been in that space. But sitting behind a desk didn't really do it for me. I think with what we're doing in sustainability, with all the changes going on in the world, I wanted to really experience that. So I started to travel. I moved to Shanghai. I was in Shanghai for about a decade, and that's where I really dug deep into the world of sustainability. So versus just in academic discussion, sitting on a panel and talking about it, I was in factories. I was on fields with the individual workers. I lived on a palm oil plantation in Borneo for a bit, and just really wanted to be there and to see things firsthand. And I think that's a little bit of the distinction between folks that may be in the United States or in Europe, where sustainability is more conceptual. But in Asia in particular, it's, roll your sleeves up and get dirty. It's work that's going on. And then after my my 10-year stint in China, I think that was enough of a tour of duty. I decided to move to Melbourne to experience things here. I was at a conference a few years back pre-COVID and realized there's quite a bit of work to do in Australia as well. So I thought, okay, let's go back to the developed world a bit and see what we can do.
That's amazing. Okay, I lived 20 years in Hong Kong. Just moved back to Canada now. Looking at your photograph, as a performance artist, the world I lean towards, this idea of like being a grain of sand on the cornea. It's like an irritant that you can't, like, this is one little grain just gets in the way and has a great impact. Your first image are these two kids in front of Van Gogh doing this protest. You lived in Shanghai, which is, having been in Hong Kong and very different from Shanghai, and I totally understand what you mean about being in Asia, and that's essentially the horizon of where all of this stuff is happening. I mean, you kind of also go into a palm plantation, palm oil plantation, palm tree plantation. Yeah, you definitely dive right in. Why is that inside you? What about growing up made that kind of a part of who you are?
That's a really interesting question. I think it's that, and this is going to sound trite and ridiculous, but it is that curiosity. And I think by and large, a lot of people don't really have that curiosity. They're very happy with just taking things at face value. I'm not quite that way. I do feel myself as quite an irritant, as quite a grain of sand in the eye. I've always sort of been that way. But I'm also of the view that, unless I've experienced it, unless I know about it, not necessarily intimately, but whatever I'm talking about, I need to have had experience in it. I shouldn't be talking about it. So that can go from, living on that palm oil plantation all the way through trying a food, right? Don't say you don't like something if you've never done it. So I think that's always been sort of in my DNA, and that's what led to that sense of adventure, certainly in Asia. And then that just snowballed into something bigger. I thought the stint in, probably the same way you did in Hong Kong, I thought the stint was going to be very short in Shanghai. And here we are many, many years later with great stories to tell.
Yeah, but that's life. I find that really interesting that you're the kind of person who goes right into the, in Hebrew, it's the juice of the garbage, right? So, you have the garbage bag, and the juice is like really, it's the essence. And Shanghai is the juice of the garbage as far as industrialization of China is concerned, or commercialization of China. But okay, so how do you deal with the retort of somebody listening to this saying, "Hey, buddy, you're into sustainability, but you're flying everywhere"?
I was waiting for that. So,
well, let's just knock those easy things off the table.
I mean, I'm not a fan of the whole carbon footprint thing, because if you look at somebody like me, my carbon footprint is quite high compared to a lot of people because I'm traveling. But there's a reason behind that. Why am I traveling? I'm traveling to go sit in a boardroom at a highly polluting company to tell them, hey, stop it, and to work with them to stop it. So at the end of the day, that balances out. You know, I may be polluting in one way, but I'm certainly doing a lot of good on the other hand. So that's how I rationalize it in my mind. And I suppose for me, I'm not the kind of sustainability person who is a hug the trees and save the polar bears kind of person. I'm not an activist. There's plenty of people doing that, and I'm really happy that they are. Not me. I'm very much a dollars and cents sort of sustainability person. I am very much of the view that the corporate world, the private sector, is going to be what pulls us out of this. It got us into the mess, so it's their responsibility anyways. But they have access to capital. They have a reason to be better that governments and individuals just cannot do. And we've learned that. So it's really on them to do the best they can and to improve, and that's sort of where I see my role. There's a role for everybody, and that's mine.
I love it. Moving on. Next photo.
Sure.
So is life really a gift? Really? Can you make every second count? That's the whole point of the podcast. So if you like what you've seen and you're inspired, because that really is my mission, then please give it a like, subscribe, and share.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.